We're back, baby. It's been a long time, honestly, too long. And I would say it's my fault, but it's not. It's your guys' fault, Matt and Jeremy's fault.
Definitely Matt's fault.
Yeah, it's probably
They
my
don't
fault.
respond to my texts, so here
sorry,
we
I
are, like
got
more
jobs
than a
done.
week later, and yeah, like a real job. Real jobs are stupid.
No.
This is where we're making the money. But we're back. I think this is our 5th episode. But yeah, we're back, and on a football Sunday, we got a lot to talk about because we got football happening. So we'll be hitting you guys with live updates throughout the day as we're talking. But first off, we're gonna talk about the NBA real quick. Real quick update on the week. We had Lakers sucking donkey balls. We had Warriors Nets, great, possibly, future matchup. I could see it. I could see a future matchup in the finals, but let's start there. Let's start with the NBA. Of course, because it's my talk show, we're gonna start with the Lakers. And how bad they've been. They've been so fucking bad, and it's been really disappointing to watch. They had a good win we talked about last week against the Miami Heat, Matt's team. Matt, I'm pretty sure you own part of the team, right?
Yeah, it's just a couple percent.
It's the people's team. It's the people's team. They had a good win, and since then they've just been really bad. They got killed by the Celtics a few nights ago. It was a close game until the second half, which in the third quarter, they are like a minus 94 in the third quarter this season.
Which for those who are not big analytics guys, it's bad.
It's been bad.
Yeah, I crunched the numbers, and it's bad.
Thanks for doing that for us, Cole.
Yeah, I thought I might as well. But they lost badly to the Wolves. They beat the Spurs, but everyone beats the Spurs.
How do you think they're going to fare against the Pistons today?
I'm scared, dude. I'm scared. Honestly, like fucking Cade Cunningham.
Yeah, they've got some sparks
They got some
that are
hitters.
flying for them. Yeah, the young guys
The
over there
young
are starting
blood.
to make some moves. Make those old heads on the Lakers maybe a little nervous.
No, I mean they have knees that can bend and legs that can like run and like jump and defend, and so I'm scared. Also, it was just extra bad. It was just extra hurtful, the Bulls game. You just can see Lonzo Ball, you see Alex Caruso just playing super well, and it's like we had both those players on the Lakers, and
Would you rather have Alex Caruso or Russell Westbrook on that team right now?
are you joking?
It's just supposed to hurt a little bit.
I-
I'm curious as to your response.
I'd rather have Jeremy Wayne Hirschberg than Russell Westbrook.
Oh yeah, that guy's good.
That guy's
good.
that guy can fucking ball out, dude. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's just funny that you have to entertain that question even for like a half a second. You know?
Well,
Just
look at what I wrote on the Google Doc, dude. I'm not, as everyone who's been watching this show can tell, I'm not a fan of Russell Westbrook. It might be breaking news, but that guy fucking sucks at basketball. You're a point guard, right? Is the position of point guard not sacred anymore? You control the game, you control the ball. You're not
He's controlling the ball. He's just choosing to give it to the other team.
Yeah, and I don't like that. That doesn't
Yeah,
make
no, it is. I mean, I think when you add him to what is now, it should be a very good team with a lot of talent. You were okay with writing off those turnovers frequently before because he was the entire team. Now you're on a good team. You can't have them make turnovers anymore.
No.
They just keep going.
No, because the other option is give it to LeBron James or Anthony Davis. That's the our alternative to turning the ball over, and I think we all know what we'd rather have happen. It's just been and it was extra hard to watch the Bulls too because of DeMar DeRozan. I mean, there was many reports and rumors going around that, and I think even DeMar DeRozan had said he almost thought it was a for sure thing that he was going to go to the Lakers in the offseason.
Go to LA, yeah.
And he's fucking killing it, dude. He is absolutely killing it. He's like 5th or something in scoring this season. Like,
that was without Vooch too.
And he's
Vooch
sharing.
He's in health and safety protocols right now.
Yeah, and he's sharing the court with Zach LaVine, who's another like top 10 scorer, and he's doing fine. Yeah, he's 26.6 on, 48% shooting. It's just it was hard to see. It was like they fucked up. I mean, I think that is all you could say about that. It's fucked up. They fucked up.
Yeah.
Le GM. Yeah, that was my rant. I don't want to hold you guys up too much, but
this Lakers team's has big Knicks vibes to it. Real gather all the biggest names you can. Be damned how they fit together. Be damned how old they are. Rondo, yeah, I've heard of him. He's good. Dwight Howard, just put him, throw them all in there. Russell Westbrook, whatever. Just put all the biggest names you can find. Yeah, DeAndre Jordan, yeah, fantastic. Throw them all in his court together. They'll figure it out.
Yeah.
It didn't work that well for the Knicks for a long time.
And so, that's what on the notes for this episode I wrote down. Someone had mentioned, I forget who it was, but someone was like, do you try to trade Russell Westbrook? And obviously, without thinking of anything else besides just on the court fit, you'd be like, well, you probably take a look at that for sure. But there's all these other things that go along with it. Is he has a big contract. He has like $44 million owed to him. What team's going to take that on? You also have just like the image of your team signing this big star and then just trading him off the bat. That doesn't look good to other stars you want to recruit. But
yeah, I mean, look, he's acquiring a player who's underperforming on a $44 million contract is only a move that desperate teams make.
Yeah.
And there is arguably no more desperate team than the Lakers right now. So there is nobody to pawn him off on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to make it work.
That's too bad. And it's wild that it seems that, the Lakers that need to focus on building around LeBron and AD as they've put as their main centerpieces, they have this, elite athlete scorer slotted in, and his weakness seems to be the fact that he has to run an offense. And he thrives in this disarray that if you're trying to enforce an offense, that guy doesn't fit there.
Yeah.
You're paying him so much money to be there. It's a tough situation.
No, it's sad. I mean, he's 19-8-8, which isn't awful, but I mean, you look at it further, and his shooting percentage is just terrible.
And the
turnover. And I think to Jeremy's point there,
29% from three.
Yeah, it's harsh. You watch those games, and he's just not playing within the offense at all.
No. And that was the knock on him, at Houston. This is not new. This is nothing new. And I'm just confused why they thought it would have a different result.
Hey, Kemba was there were available players out there. There was Kemba, there was Kyle Lowry, there was DeMar DeRozan. There were a lot of players that probably
even I think you just Buddy Hield.
They had Schroeder, right?
They had Schroeder and Caruso.
Yeah, but Schroeder was not Schroeder was not. They were on bad terms. They were shipped.
Well, obviously, I mean, he dropped, in my opinion, from like a professional standpoint for his career, he really dropped the bag. I mean, he had a killer extension from the Lakers for, I don't know, it was like 70 million or something like that across 5 years, and now he's in Boston on like a 1-year contract for like 6 or 8 mil or something like that. Like it just like didn't. He dropped the bag big time.
Yeah.
And I know they were on bad terms, but he's a super solid point guard, like in terms of someone that you know, isn't going to necessarily break the bank, but can like, you know, run an offense.
True. He had a tough time similar to Westbrook though, where he had a hard time fitting in with LeBron, where they just like Schroeder, needed a more open lane. Like that's why I feel like he's working on Boston, is because it's more spread out. They don't have AD in there just cluttering the paint. I think that's why I don't think he was necessarily the fit for the Lakers. I mean, here's my question is, dude, THT, Talen Horton-Tucker, he was like undrafted, like 60th pick. He was kind of balling out until the last game. He did nothing, but he's a rookie, and so there is a little bit of up and down. My question,
he's definitely showed some potential.
Yeah,
like he's had some of those big games where, you know, the next game he comes back and he like doesn't do anything, but he has those big ones.
Yeah, like 28 points against the Bulls, 25 against the Bucks, 17 against the Spurs. That's where it's just like, fucking, at what point do you just go like, we need to start, even if you're not going to win with Russell Westbrook, you might as well start preparing for the future, dude. Like, I don't know, but it might be too late for that. You know, what do you do if you're the front office? And I think part of it is like LeBron and AD are the front office at this point. I think they're the ones.
No, there is not a reliable path to a championship this year that includes trading Russell Westbrook outside of some like get lucky steal. Somebody throws you players that you're able to put in there. I think it's unlikely. I think you look at that and you say, this is what we have to work with.
Yeah. And
you got to start making changes to game plan, changes to coaching, whatever it is, to figure out how to make it fit. So we talked about last episode. I mean, we don't want to just be, you know, we're not just going to talk Russell Westbrook every time we hop on here, but we mentioned it a couple episodes ago. You can look back and find out, when has this man thrived and succeeded? It's not hard to find out. And how can we try to replicate that within our offense that still allows all three of our big-time superstars to thrive? And that's, they really haven't. I don't know about you. I haven't seen any major changes or pivots in game plan.
Well, there's been some talk about Frankie V, baby, is on the hot seat, man. He won a championship, but that only lasts so long.
I'll believe they're truly committed to winning basketball games despite these guys' egos. When I see Anthony Davis start playing 5 and opening up lanes for Russell Westbrook and LeBron to drive into the paint. When those sort of changes start happening, then you can go, okay, they're actually trying everything possible. But until they have any real adjustments to try to fit a very different roster, they're just hoping it all works out.
Do you guys think they would ever get Russell Westbrook to come off the bench?
I was just thinking that, because I think that could be like where he gets more of that room, is like if he's in the second unit and they put in some of the smaller bigs or whatever so that AD and Bron aren't clogging up the paint for him. That could be, then you have him on the same team as LeBron and AD, but in a situation where it's much more, hey, go do something with the ball. Don't worry about, running the offense as crisply and smoothly to make sure that AD and LeBron get their roles. Just score.
Like a Manu Ginobili role, like on the Spurs, like back in the day.
Yeah, no, I don't see that at all. I think partially because you got 48 minutes in a game. if this team is going to really be winning, you've got LeBron and AD playing 35 minutes.
Yeah.
That leaves 13 when they're off the floor.
Yeah.
So you're
I
telling
can
me you
see
pay
that.
$44 million for a guy to run your game for 13 minutes?
Nah.
It puts such a limit on their upside. Like, the only way they win this year is not by like getting a great sixth man, like turning Russell Westbrook into a great sixth man.
They need
It's like,
Austin
no, this guy has
Reeves,
to be
dude.
a pillar. He's got to be out there 34 minutes with a positive impact. Otherwise, you don't win.
No, the real reason the Lakers have been losing is this guy, Austin Reeves. Look at him. I mean, he is he's the pinnacle of society right here. I saw a meme of him. Someone posted something on Twitter being like, with Michael Cera from Arrested Development, and had like as him as like Austin Reeves being like, oh, just wait till I get back or something. Like, no, they're fucked. I mean, that's when you know Lakers fans are betting on some guy named Austin Reeves who looks like fucking Alex Caruso but downgraded, man. Even he like, if I don't even know if it's possible, but a whiter Alex Caruso.
Somebody saw like a scouting report for Josh Giddey and was like, wow, this guy looks really good. And then they like looked at this other guy, you know, and they go, he looks a lot like Josh Giddey. He's probably pretty decent too.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think it's a bit early to say that they're entirely fucked. I mean, like, Braun always changes somewhere towards the mid to late season, and they've got a lot of time to work
Russell Westbrook.
Right, exactly. They've got a lot of time to work on their chemistry, and these are players that like know what it's like to be in the postseason, and know how to like flip that switch and change how they approach the game. And so I think it's a bit early to say they're fucked, but it certainly doesn't make Lakers fans feel confident when you're at where they are right now.
Really? I'm very confident. I feel confident as fuck. Can't you tell?
Now that we've had the obligatory "how are these guys still this bad" talk, and any other NBA stuff you guys wanted to touch on today?
Yeah, let's go Warriors Nets.
Nets.
Those are two teams that don't look like dog shit. And that was a really fucking good game until the Warriors decided to just dominate the second half. Also, KD did not have a great game. 6 for 19, 2 for 6 from 3. He's a negative or minus 24 overall in the game. Only 19 points. Dude, the Warriors defense is as good or better than when they were, I think when they were like a historically great team that season. They won, I forget how many games it is, 72?
Yeah.
Something.
I
But
believe so, yeah. 72-9.
they look so good. I mean, Steph Curry has got to be, if he wasn't before, he's got to be everyone's top vote for MVP.
At this point, he's just gotta be.
I mean, he is. So here, this is a big stat, was his 9+ 3-point games is insane. What the fuck, dude?
Just like so far ahead of everybody else.
That's great. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, what is it? Just like triple, quadruple
Yeah.
at the next
No, I
person
mean,
has.
we mentioned this defense before. This is a real strong suit for this team. They are sort of team defense and then Steph Curry offense. Like that's how this team operates, and it is really proving to be successful. We mentioned it last time. Is Steve Kerr an offensive or defensive coach? I think we're seeing more and more. Steve Kerr is a defensive coach that has been blessed with historically great offensive players. And this team's identity has always been offense, but every time they've made these deep playoff runs, you can point to them as a top 5 defense in the league.
I think it's almost like in that you say that they've been blessed with these like offensive talents. You take like Steph and Clay's off-ball movement and stuff like that. The Warriors have this like different brand of flow to their offense that like just you watch it and that ball's whipping around like crazy.
Yeah.
And just time and time again, they get an open look and you're like, wow, that was just great basketball. Like they put that entire play together and the movement was just so crisp and clean, and that gives the impression that Steve Kerr is an offensive coach because it just looks so darn pretty.
And
But I think you're totally right.
No, and to that point, actually, in the Nets game, it was in the second half that came out. It wasn't Steph Curry. It was Andrew Wiggins came out and hit a few threes that really started that run, or a few shots, and then Curry kind of took it home. But I mean, they're a well-rounded team. Jordan Poole will put in his, 17. Wiggins will put in his 19. And
both of those guys have like boom potential where they have this like
they can pop
really
off.
good game on top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the question mark is still what we've been saying it is, right? All these young players that are playing really well right now, do they keep it up and can they perform when these games get really important?
And that's the worry. They need more games like this. Nationally televised games against like a highly respected, highly very established stars on the team, and they need to go head to head against these teams on national television.
In emotional games,
yeah,
right? Because that's what this is. This becomes an emotional game. You play a guy like Kevin Durant and the Nets, having just left your team to go and start this other team. Right? There's emotion baked in here. You want to see those guys really step up and step in when things get tougher, and they did. So I think it was great to see. We talked about it when it happened, right? Like how do you look at these as legacy games when you have these sort of Steph Curry versus Kevin Durant?
Exactly. No, they need games like that for sure.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned, Cole, that you think Steph Curry's got legacy-wise the most on the line here. I think it's Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
So
I would agree with that.
No, that is a great topic, because that's so funny, because these two teams that are well-rounded teams, I mean, the Nets also have just like so much talent outside of Harden and Durant, yet all over all the sports talk shows it's KD versus Steph. I mean, let's talk about that.
Because there's legacy in play here. You have two guys who, not outwardly, but there was obviously a bit of a struggle as to whose team is this, right? Even just in dialogue, right? You watch those Warriors games, Kevin Durant's the best player on that court, or so it appears.
Yeah.
Yet this is still viewed as Steph Curry's team. It's still run typically like a Steph Curry offense. And when these guys lose because KD misses a mid-range jumper, they go, oh, this guy can't play within the offense. This team was great without him. They don't need him. So he goes off, is a player in Kevin Durant who has all the talent to be in the conversation for the greatest player of all time. I mean, truly, he should be. He's an excellent two-way player when he plays. He can rim protect. He can defend four positions. And then you go into offense and you have a player profile you've never seen before, an unstoppable offensive player that even when he shares a court with Steph Curry, this is the guy taking the majority of your last shots. Yet nobody talks about him in terms of the greatest player of all time. Is he better than LeBron or Jordan? Because he's never shown you that he could take a team all the way.
Nope. Yeah, exactly.
As that guy.
Exactly.
So he leaves a team that is arguably the best team of all time to go build something of his own in Brooklyn, and then loses to the team he just left. This is to me, if Kevin Durant cannot take a team that has, I don't care if Kyrie Irving ever plays a single minute on the
No,
basketball
they shouldn't.
court.
They shouldn't
You
need
have
Kyrie.
James Harden
Yeah.
in a great roster. If you can't take this team home, then you're not that guy. And to me, you're not as good as Steph Curry even, or any of these other players at that point.
And if he is not able to find success with this Nets team in the near future, the time he spent with Steph is going to be viewed as the peak of his career, and he's never going to be able to escape the criticism of, oh, you wouldn't have been able to do it without Steph.
Right. Has he ever played on a bad roster? Has Kevin Durant ever played on a bad roster?
No. He has had stacked. Okay, granted, when they were young, right after they left Seattle, they were young, and the few years there, 3 or 4 years, if that. But quickly they got they got KD, then they left and went to OKC, then they got Westbrook, then they got Harden, and they got fucking
they had Ibaka.
I mean, they had like an old Derek Fisher, but still, I mean, that dude's like one of the like smartest basketball players, I think. And I totally agree. I think Kevin Durant's greatness is overrated. And here's why. I do. I really do. I look at Steph and I look at LeBron. I look at even someone like Giannis or Doncic. I just think those players are so much smarter than KD. Anyone who's tall and has hands can shoot the basketball. Like scoring is a staple. Scoring is a staple in the NBA. I just personally think that like a smart basketball player who can also score amazingly, who can score but also pass, get their teammates open, run an offense, manage the clock, manage the half-court sets, is so much more valuable. So much. And I think you're giving KD way too much on the defensive end. He can be good, but it's whether he chooses to be good on the defensive end. And I don't think he's ever even been in the conversation of being like, all defensive player.
He was pretty great as a defender on Golden State when they were able to play him at power forward and have him and Draymond as your big men.
Yeah, but
to be able to do that for extended periods of time is pretty impressive.
But then see, to your point there is people go back and they say, look at all these great stats for when KD was on the Warriors. He got Finals MVP 2 years in a row. He was a great defender. The Warriors are so good, they can plug anyone in, and they will look like the best version of themselves. I think that speaks more to the Warriors than it does to KD. Because if you're a good team, or a good player, you should be able to be the best version of yourself no matter where you go. If you're really that player, if you're the greatest of all time, like we've seen like LeBron do, like he could go to fucking Cleveland, lose Kyrie, lose Kevin Love in the 2015 finals, and take it to 6 games against like an amazing Warriors team. Like that is so much more valuable to me than someone who can score from anywhere on the floor. It's like, fucking so what, dude? A lot of players can score anywhere on the floor. And if arguably Curry is more of an efficient scorer because he shoots mostly 3-pointers at a very high clip. And we've seen analytically that's just a better offense. I mean, 3 is better than 2. I don't know. I've never really gotten the Kevin Durant stuff. He's a great player. He really is. But I just think the Warriors, him winning with the Warriors means nothing to me. They were a historically great team.
And therein lies the legacy aspect of it.
Right.
Is that like you can sit there and say him winning a championship with the Warriors means nothing, regardless of if he was the best player on this team, and maybe you just don't believe he was, right? It means nothing to me. So to me, we say that, and then you have to view this time in Brooklyn as there's probably no more player in the entire league right now that has more legacy on the line than Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
I completely agree. I mean, the conversation that Cole, I think, the side of the conversation that Cole brings up now, I don't think would have been easy to argue a couple years ago. I think that we saw him be just one of the people that you just could not stop in terms of scoring. And like I think that part of this weird legacy bump down the road where he hasn't found success with a team like enables that conversation to happen more and more.
Yeah, and everyone forgets this, but in the 2016 finals, when the Warriors embarrassingly fucked up a 3-1 lead, guess who also fucked up a 3-1 lead?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Kevin Durant and the Oklahoma
versus the Warriors.
Yeah, against the Warriors.
Against the Warriors. And no one talks about that. Everyone's like, oh, the Warriors went crying. Like, Draymond went crying into the fucking parking lot. It was like, Kevin Durant, we need you. I call bullshit. You think Draymond Green is crying to anyone? Draymond Green, I think, would rather be the last place team in the league before he goes crying to any player. If I'm being honest, I bet KD was like, holy shit, we blew this lead and I need to get with a great team. And I just see Kevin Durant, I just see the Warriors as they knew that if they inserted KD into their system and gave him the bells and whistles, the crown, and was like, do your thing, and pretended like he is the man, but really it's the Warriors. The Warriors system was the man, and everyone knew it. I mean, all Warriors fans were like, this is still Steph's team.
I think the issues are actually remarkably similar to the issues that we were pointing out for Russell Westbrook, in that they are slightly different, but to me, I see it more as Kevin Durant's issues with finding a team and finding like fitting in with a team, in the same way that Russell Westbrook has issues like fitting into an offense or like fitting into the game plan of a team.
Yeah.
Both of those reasons like prevent them from having, I don't know, long-term success that helps build legacy. And I think that's part of why they didn't have success together too, is because both of them are scorers and they play the game remarkably well in ISO situations.
Yeah.
And the way they come together doesn't and not just with each other, but the way they come together with a team hasn't seemed to be super like intuitive to them. And that's where I think a lot of the issues come about and why these conversations get bumped down the road and their legacy seems to dwindle a bit relative to someone like Steph.
Yeah. Yeah. But then on the other side, so Steph's legacy, I think isn't perfect either. Like I talk about Steph as he is the backbone. Honestly, I would say Draymond's the backbone of the Warriors' success. I'd say Steph is the helm. But Draymond, see,
I feel like Draymond like facilitates the value of Steph being distributed to the team. But like I think Draymond's not going to have anywhere near as much success without Steph, and I think Steph would still have some pretty good success without Draymond.
Possibly, but in terms of the context of the Warriors, though, and that's just the emphasis on scoring. There's so much other like value and utility that Draymond brings on defense. Absolutely. I mean, arguably, if they were to vote on Defensive Player of the Year so far, I think it would be Draymond. I think everyone would agree that Draymond is killing it. But I just think Steph has to win Finals MVP to be considered anywhere near the top 15 players of all time. Even I would say top 3 point guards of all time. Steph has to win a Finals MVP. He's definitely, everyone would argue, I think Magic has a better legacy than Steph. you could even argue like Isaiah Thomas does. He had far less talent and beat a very stacked Bulls team back in the day when he was on the Pistons. I'm trying to think of who else. There's like Oscar Robertson, who was the triple-double king back in the day, and he actually won with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Yeah, what do you guys think about that? What does Steph have to do to get?
I think
yeah.
I think if he does, I think it's impactful because it's a box to check. I don't care about it much. I'll put it down. I don't care about it much at all. I think Finals MVP is an important and an impactful thing, and can be a big statement, but you're not watching if you think that Iguodala was actually more important than Steph Curry in those.
Well,
games.
that is a very strong argument. People,
give him the award because he overplayed in such a critical role, and that without him, maybe you don't win. But there's zero chance. Andre Iguodala doesn't think he was the most important person in that.
That is true. I do have to say though, Steph has. I don't think it's debatable that Steph has been very underwhelming in finals, though. Even if he did do decently. I think he averaged like 25 points, but his shooting percentages are all down, like in those games. And when they blew that 3-1 lead, I mean, he was not good. If Steph plays like Steph, there's no way that the Cavs come back.
And I mean, that's true. And I think we see in finals, oftentimes, teams sell out to stop the number one option for the other team. Playoffs, generally speaking, that's something we see. And the teams that win are the ones that are able to pivot and adjust and win with their third and fourth options. And that's something that we've seen the Warriors do. It was why it was so unstoppable when Kevin Durant was there, because now Steph Curry's your second option and Clay's your third. I mean, it just sort of waterfalls down that way. But he's always been, and even just getting them there. You look at the showdowns they've had with the Clippers, the showdowns they've had with the Rockets in the conference finals, and those are games that he has taken over time after time. And you don't win 3 finals without being that guy, and he's been that guy.
And I think it's pretty interesting that, you know, now, which I would say the Warriors have one of the. I mean, there was a really rough season somewhere a couple years ago, but they have one of the lesser stacked rosters that they've had, and we're having the conversation of, is Steph the best he's ever been now? Like that to me, like, says a lot relative to you have someone like Kevin Durant going to this team that's supposed to be, you know, he's got all the pieces he needs around. He's, you know, we're not having that conversation. Like, I don't think anybody's comparing his performance now to when he was with the Warriors and saying, is he the best he's ever been? To me, that says a lot.
Yeah, and that's an interesting transition when you talk about that. Cole, you've talked about Matthew Stafford and the Rams recently, and we were speaking very highly of them the last time we hopped on here. And they have not looked good recently. And Stafford has not looked good recently.
And so that goes back to the pressure thing. I mean, I think part of that's gotten to Steph Curry. You know, we can argue about that all day long. But especially with someone who hasn't been there before, where Steph has been there plenty of times. Matthew Stafford has 3. They went with the Lions. They went there 3 times to the playoffs. The Lions went to the playoffs 3 times under Matthew Stafford's rule, so to speak. And they lost every game. And the Lions, if you know anything about football, the Lions are the poo-poo. They're the poo-poo of the, you know. You have, like, the head is, you know, you got, like, the Green Bays, and you got the, you know, the Mahomes boys, and then you got the booty, which is the Lions, and everything just funnels that way.
Yeah,
Matthew
big time.
Stafford looks like he might have forgotten where he is. I think he's like, am I in Detroit? Like he looks like, yeah, he looks like the Matthew Stafford of old. Very average. A stat that I had heard was he's like second or third all time in pick sixes. And that was brought up especially because the last 2 games he has almost 3, basically 3. One of them was the Titans one where he just spun around and fucking like threw it at the guy, and he actually didn't get into the end zone, but he should have. I mean, they scored eventually.
Yeah. Remarkable that he wasn't in the end zone on that
Yeah. So, no, that is a really good point. They have a bye week this week, which could be good, but also could be bad.
I think it's good. I mean,
You think so?
and they need to, I think, slow down, take a second, realign with like who they should be, and try to make this work.
They need to fix that.
I was at work and threw on the Niners Rams game when that happened, and I don't know, I missed like a little bit at the beginning, and I just watched a couple plays, and then Matt Stafford just loads up for this deep shot, and in my head I'm like, oh, he's got all the pieces now, like this is gonna be where we see it come together, and he just bombs it, and it's just an awful throw. No, like receiver in double coverage overthrew him, picked off, and I was like,
threw it to the inside. He threw it to the inside of. That was actually OBJ. We talked about OBJ a ton. We're like, oh, this could be, perfect place for him, Hollywood. And Matthew Stafford has him on the outside, but he threw it inside to the double coverage. I mean, it was
just like,
bad.
what are you doing?
I mean, look, he has for the most part been very, very good this year. He leads the league in QB rating year to date. He looks like he's been a good player who's finally surrounded by good players. And the last 2 games, important games, mind you. I mean, Tennessee is somebody you might see in the play. I mean, that's a real contender. 49ers is a division game.
Yeah.
He has looked bad, but so has this whole team over those 2 games.
Breaking news, their defense is really bad.
Which is a problem.
They're not a top 1 defense anymore.
You have the best defensive lineman in the league, the best corner in the league, and you just add a defensive player of the year caliber pass rusher in Von Miller.
He was MVP. He was MVP of the Super Bowl 50.
Yeah. And you're still giving up 30 points a game? I mean, come on now.
Yeah.
This was bad, these past losses. So I think it's easy to look at Stafford and point and look like, man, he has not played well. But there is not – I mean, I think Cooper Kupp is probably the only person you could point to on this entire roster and be like, hey, he's still playing well.
Yeah, like he's playing up to where he should be. That's actually a really good point. That's a really good point. I don't think anyone else really has. Maybe Robert Woods, but now he's hurt. They don't have Robert Woods anymore.
No. So I mean, there's something wrong there. That's why I think they're going to use this bye week. This is going to be important and impactful for them because they just need a reset. They need to get back to Rams football and get this going because it is going to be a problem for them if they don't make a real run this year.
No way, dude. NFC is stacked. I mean, look at your own division. You couldn't even beat the 49ers, and they've underperformed. Now they're
it's the third best team in your division.
Yeah, I mean, that's not even talking about the Cardinals and
the rest of the NFC. I mean, very, very good teams.
Bay,
right?
Yeah.
You're gonna have to, if you're gonna win a Super Bowl in the NFC, you're gonna have to beat the Packers at some point, right? So you're gonna have to beat the Cardinals. Supposedly, you'd say the Rams there, but they don't look good.
I mean, look at this, though. They only had 52 total rushing yards. I think that's another part of the knock on Stafford is they don't have a run game. I mean, it's really hard on a quarterback to carry the
Darrell
team.
Henderson's talented. Like they should be getting more than they are for sure.
Yeah.
And honestly, yes, Henderson's talented. I don't even care. You don't need a really talented running back to have a good enough running game in this league. You don't. And Sean McVay is supposed to be a guy that he's an offensive guru. He's supposed to be a guy who comes in here and builds a scary run offense that builds into a passing offense.
Yeah.
I don't care who you plug in. You're spending a lot of money on an offensive line. You're spending a lot of money on a head coach who's supposed to be a generational offensive guru. You should be able to get 80 to 100 yards rushing in your sleep any given week.
Guys, I just saw Ezekiel Elliott limp off the field.
Oh God. Yeah. So while we're doing this, well, let's just give out shout outs to the football games that are going on right now.
Hot take: I think they lose Zeke. Doesn't affect this team at all. I think Tony Pollard's a very good player.
Yeah.
Great offensive line. I don't think it matters.
Honestly, I completely agree with you, but from a NFL standpoint, but from a fantasy standpoint, I have Zeke on my team, and I would not be happy with that. Luckily, I do have Pollard on my bench.
The most by Zeke going out is not the Dallas Cowboys; it's Jeremy's fantasy team.
Yes, I think we all can agree on that.
Yeah, that's very important too. That's very important.
We've as we sort of run through NFL stuff here, and we mentioned Aaron Rodgers. We predicted big time comeback, hot streak for Aaron Rodgers after all the hullabaloo, let's call it, in the media with him. He came back his first week back.
I don't think you can say that on the air.
Hullabaloo. I apologize. I'll watch my language. Aaron Rodgers came back first week off of that break he had and did not put on his big boy pants that week. He did not look good. They lost. He threw up a terrible stat line. And now
he still almost had 300 yards.
Last week?
Yes.
What was the stat line last week?
292 yards, 1 interception.
No touchdowns.
No touchdowns, yeah.
Yeah, terrible. I don't want to hear that. You can point to that as a positive when Justin Fields does it. I won't take it for Aaron Rodgers.
True.
Unacceptable.
And if the Seahawks had been anywhere near where they've been in the past, Packers would have lost this game easily.
Yeah. And they would have been blown out. So that was a problem.
They lost to the Vikings, but I don't think that was Rodgers' fault today.
No, he came back this week, had a good game.
Yeah, he almost threw for 400 fucking yards, 4 touchdowns. Rodgers is looking good. Vikings are looking not so bad. Honestly, they played the Chargers last week and had a good game.
Their record doesn't do their team justice.
Exactly,
Yeah, but that's been Vikings for years now.
That
right?
is so true.
Look at this team and say, "Oh, this is a contender, right?"
Yeah.
And then it becomes a question as to do they get the wild card and make the playoffs?
Yeah.
So I'm not a believer in that team. I think the Packers clearly they scored 30 what points this week?
31 points.
31
points. They lost to a game-winning field goal.
Yeah, and no Aaron Jones either. Yeah, that's a defense problem.
Yeah. So Chiefs, I put it on the schedule. Chiefs, Cowboys. I was hoping we could talk about it before the game started, but it's going on right now, and Chiefs are up 9-3. Who has more at stake in this game? Because it's a big game. I mean. You could say, I don't know. Honestly, yeah, this Cowboys-Chiefs definitely the biggest game this weekend, or this week. Who does this matter to more? And a little bit of context, the Chiefs have been not the best, but they are on a 3-game winning streak right now. They started off crappy, and everyone's like, sound the alarm, Mahomes isn't as good as people thought. Maybe Justin Herbert's the new quarterback of the future. And we saw what happened to that.
Yeah, I mean, look, part of the problem is you pointed a 3-game win streak as positive for the Chiefs. They're supposed to have 4 of those. You know what I mean? Like, this is supposed to be a team that wins 12, 13 games in a season.
True.
3-game win streak is supposed to be your baseline. So that's the issue here. To me, they're the ones with more to lose. Cowboys fans are they're used to disappointment at this point. If this team makes the playoffs and they lose,
Boom.
they
Boom
go
roasted.
Yeah, they go, that sucks. I thought this was our year. I'm sure it'll be next year. And then they go and they, hang up their jersey in the same place they always do when they have their first round exit.
Yeah.
And they move on with their lives.
True.
Chiefs fans, you are demanding excellence at this point from your team.
It's
and
supposed to be a
they
new
have
dynasty.
not given you that.
Yeah, they are the golden gods.
But so far, the game's not off to a good start for the Cowboys. I mean, they're
Right.
down. Dak's got 29 yards and a fumble that was lost, and Zeke is potentially injured. So, I mean, it's still early. It's only been a quarter of gameplay almost now, and so it's still plenty of football to play. But that's not a great start if you're Dallas.
No, not
Right.
at all.
True.
Um,
Speaking of the Chiefs' win streak, they beat the high and mighty Raiders last week.
yeah, and I mean, let's put this into context. Yeah, their win streak is not like it's like they're definitively like back. I mean, they won. Let's see. Okay, they got killed by the Titans. They probably should have gotten shut out. They got 1 field goal at the end. They barely beat the fucking Giants, and Mahomes didn't have a great game. Yeah, I mean, it was all right.
It hasn't been pretty, is I think your point.
Yeah, and then they barely beat the Aaron Rodgers-less Packers, with Jordan Love, who had not a great game. They barely beat them.
Mahomes had a bad game that game.
Yeah, I mean, they had only 13 points. And Mahomes 166, 1 touchdown.
Yeah, that's not a Mahomes stat line.
That's not a Mahomey game.
No.
Chiefs Raiders, they did really well, but the Raiders, for context, are not in a good spot. They lost their head coach. Their like star young wide receiver like killed someone with his car, and he's gone. They've not been playing well, and
Their first round DB threatened to kill someone with his gun.
He got cut.
Yeah, I just think like them go this whole I'm sure you guys saw this, like, oh, I got my swagger back, like
Yeah, it doesn't appear
It's
that
a
way.
shit show. It's a shit show of non-football related issues with their team, which is like the last thing you want to have to deal with as a team.
Yeah, and you guys have heard and seen my rant before about this Raiders team, because I feel very strongly that John Gruden and Mike Mayock, their GM, have screwed this up from the second they entered the building and have not really given this team a chance. I mean, we've seen all of backlash and chatter about John Gruden and the league and the emails, and he's gone. And was he ever good? I mean, I get that they were on a promising run this year.
the Raiders were never good, if that answers your question.
No, this has never been a truly good team, and he has not helped this team. He says all the things you want him to say in the press conference.
They're losing to the Bengals already, so
Dances in the locker room and whatever. This has been a problem. And just to quickly run through
yeah. So this
my
is
little rant.
no,
of
this
this
is our
team.
main
Tell 'em that.
story. This is our main story for the day. Is this Raiders football team, and they've gone through a lot off the field, and it's worth taking a look at. Are they just a bad organization? Also,
Just walk with me here.
Yeah.
Walk with me here.
Tell them how it
And,
is.
for context, for those at home, just Google Mark Davis. He runs this team. Just look at a picture of it. That has nothing to do with my argument here, but I want you to do it because I think it also supports the fact that this team is a shit show here. From the second that we watched John Gruden, who handpicks Mike Mayock as his GM, who's coming in from the media at this point, to come into this team, they have echoed the same thing over and over again. And it is what John Gruden has been known for, which is this culture, this team culture. And Mike Mayock has repeatedly said that this has to do with toughness and character. And character is all about accountability. And that's always what we've heard from him to the ad nauseam for his philosophy on team building. And there's no better time than to walk down this path and see the decisions that they've made than just a couple weeks removed from both of their 2020 first round picks being cut from this team and probably the league forever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that, by the way, was less than 2 weeks removed from their head coach being booted from the team and booted from the league forever. And I think part of the issue here is that, yeah, you can look at this and say, like, man, that's really unlucky. All these things that have happened to them, like, that's unlucky for a team.
Yeah.
These are not new, and these were not mysteries. If we look here at just what Mike Mayock had said about Damon Arnett after that they had drafted him and this whole thing happened. For those that don't know, Damon Arnett, their first round corner who was recently cut, selfie videoed himself with a number of different guns, looking at the camera, saying, "I'm going to real deal kill you. I'm going to kill you. I will kill you. Come here, I will real deal kill you." And then he sent that to somebody that he supposedly wanted to real deal kill.
Wow.
So
you can't do that.
No,
Yeah.
so Mike Mayock drafted this man in the first round, who, by the way, the big reception at the time was that was an early pick for him. He drafted him, reached for him in the first round and said, here's the quote, "Yeah, there was significant concern, and most of the teams around the league were very aware of it. We spent an awful lot of time trying to understand his behavior and really what kind of tilted everything in that direction of, okay, let's go ahead and draft him, was that we knew that coaching staff pretty well, and essentially they asked the coaches and said, what's up with this guy?" And they're like, no, he's good. Don't worry about it. So they drafted this guy after saying everybody in the league knew about his issues.
Yeah.
You spend a first-round pick on somebody like that. By the way, in his rookie season, in a single month, this man crashed 4 rental cars. So the judgment here is not a new issue, and this has been a problem since these guys entered the building. We have Mayock here in 2019. He came in. So we're trying to build a team by strengthening and improving our locker room with character guys. That's been his party line from the get-go, to the point where he, in press conferences, will say, "I know you guys are tired of hearing me talking about these character, hardworking guys, but that's our philosophy here." So we go. Gruden enters in 2018, immediately trades Khalil Mack. Not his choice. I get that. That's fine. That goes then back to the ownership, who's not willing to write a check for somebody coming off of an MVP caliber season. Somebody who is a locker room leader, best friends with your quarterback, never said anything wrong, gone out there, been exactly what you're looking for. So he's gone. You trade him for some draft capital that, now that Damon Arnett gone, is essentially just Josh Jacobs, because your draft capital you got back was Josh Jacobs, Damon Arnett, Bryan Edwards. So you got Josh Jacobs, a pretty good running back. I'll point out they just spent like $7 million a year to bring in another running back last offseason in Kenyon Drake. Not a good sign for a first-round running back. Damon Arnett, first-round DB, he's gone because of those character issues that you already knew about. Bryan Edwards, he's fine. He's a wide receiver. Yeah. He comes off the bench. He's fine. Other thing they get is all this cap room by not signing Khalil Mack to $20 million a year. So you bring in Trent Brown, LaMarcus Joyner, Vontaze Burfict, and Terrell Williams. And these were the people that John Gruden said, yeah, it wasn't just that. We also went out and got Trent Brown, Antonio Brown, LaMarcus Joyner, and Vontaze Burfict. So we take a second to look at those guys. Trent Brown, fine, gone. Traded him for a 5th round pick. Not ideal.
Yeah, they also quickly they did. I do remember that they picked up AB Antonio Brown, quickly got rid of him, and so that goes back to the point of these characters that they're bringing in with great character. Who Antonio Brown has been known to be a piece of shit. He doesn't pay people he hires. And that goes to the point of literally Antonio Brown is getting called out for ordering or trying to get fake fax cards, because the biggest reason is because he didn't want to pay his fucking chef. And so the chef's like, well, fuck you. I'm going to out you to the league and to the media. So that just goes back.
This is your character guy. This is the guy you get rid of Khalil Mack for and bring in and say, we're building a character team here. Somebody who was just cut from his team for criticizing his quarterback, criticizing everybody, live streaming from the locker room when his coach was talking to them after a defeat. Fresh off that, they sign him and say, we're bringing in character guys. Vontaze Burfict, who they brought in that same offseason, they're talking about character guys, probably known to be the dirtiest guy in the entire NFL.
Yeah.
Why did they have to get rid of him? Oh, well, he got suspended for targeting, and then they cut him. Character guys.
Yeah.
Okay?
Character
Marcus Joyner was just never good, which is a whole nother issue. John Gruden falls in love with old school players that really aren't that great anymore. And you can do a whole nother section on just the draft and free agency signings that he made there that were outdated. Terrell Williams, they brought in, caught 42 passes in his entire career there and got $21 million from the front office.
Oh my gosh.
The man was paid $500,000 per catch over a season and a half. And then don't forget that same offseason, they trade a third-round pick for Martavis Bryant, who's literally coming off of a suspension. These are their character guys that they're talking about here. And he was cut before the season even started for the same thing he had been suspended for. I mean, this is a problem.
It's a management problem.
They should start a reality show or something. Or they should do like Friday Night Lights, but it's like Raiders edition.
Just for a fun fact here. If you look up Martavis Bryant and I wonder what this guy's up to now. He was recently cut from the Toronto Argonauts, the Canadian football team.
Oh, yeah. The Toronto Argonauts.
After being suspended again in
God.
Canada. This guy can't stay on a roster in Canada.
Yeah.
So in your first season at the helm of the Raiders, after preaching character, hardworking guys, you cut your team leader and best player. You add known character issues in Damon Arnett, Vontaze Burfict, Martavis Bryant, and Antonio Brown, and then preach the foundation that you're building this new team along. It's just hypocrisy.
Yeah, it's just a whole bunch of hot air.
Infuriating.
Man, that's tough. Can you imagine, the movie Invincible with Mark Wahlberg where he tries out for the Eagles?
Yes.
Can you imagine if there was, some kind of movie like that, and they try out a bunch of people for their team, and they're like, which one do you think we should pick? And they, just pick the, awful, terrible person who's, stealing from the locker room while he's there or whatever, and being like, I think we should go with this guy. And everyone's like, what? He's like, yeah, character guys. That guy.
Yeah, and as if that wasn't enough, the next offseason comes around, and who's one of their bigger acquisitions? In the trenches, like John Gruden loves them to be, those big boys in the trenches. Richie Incognito, which for those who don't know at home, I don't blame you. He's a guard. Most people don't care or learn about guards.
True.
So I understand. But this is a man who was famous because when he played for Miami, he bullied a teammate with homophobic and racial slurs so much that the guy quit football and wrote a manifesto about the league and his now suicidal thoughts that he's had from bullying. Names Richie Cognito by name as the biggest issue in this locker room. So Miami cuts him. It was, by the way, not a good team then, just cutting apparently good players. So I'm sure that's a good statement for him. So he doesn't play for 18 months. The Bills give him a second chance. He comes back briefly, goes on a few Twitter rants, retires, unretires, criticizes his coaches, gets cut again. Fine. That guy then doesn't play another full season, and John Gruden and Mike Mayock go and's like, that's our new starting guard. We're gonna sign that guy because he's a character dude.
Well, and
you just pulled up the image of him, and I bet you flipped to the word homophobe in a dictionary, and that's the picture that shows up. My
I mean, this
goodness.
guy, he looks like a human potato. Like,
He
bro.
does.
No, that
And
guy.
then Mike Mayock,
That guy's been
when
in a hood
people ask
before
him
for
about
sure. In a white hood. Like,
when they ask Mike Mayock about signing Richie Incognito, despite these past character issues, his quote, word for word here was, "You can't have all Boy Scouts." As if Vontaze Burfict and Antonio Brown and Martavis Bryant and Damon Arnett and I guess Henry Ruggs wasn't enough. You have to add Richie Incognito, and you can't have all Boy Scouts. So much for the we're building on character foundation guys here. The Raiders now have, right now, the highest drafted players to not even be in the league anymore in 2 out of the last 3 years.
wow.
That's unreal. It's so brutal to see too, because they have some talent. Like you see their roster. Like Derek Carr is having an absolute season. You've got this duo in the backfield now, which Matt, you bring up the point that it wasn't necessarily a good management decision to spend that much money on a running back and then draft a really talented one. But having the 1-2 punch of Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake, it's excellent. You've got Darren Waller, and like you have these pieces that like you should be, if there's like a semblance of accurate management, maybe you would actually do well. But it's like the higher ups are just tanking this fucking team with their character guys.
Yeah, it's just infuriating. I mean, there are a lot of forgivable sins in sports, but this level of hypocrisy and mismanagement is just not one of them. The Raiders fans should have been happy to see John Gruden go, and they should be waiting for Mike Mayock right after them. The problem is they're so desperate for any semblance of hope that they were sad to see John Gruden leave.
Well, right, that's exactly it. Like, we're not even talking about how they're, like, the actual reason John Gruden left. Like, we're here criticizing him for being a bad manager of this team, or a coach and manager of this team, but he's also a garbage human being, because, and that was ultimately, like, why he was let go. So it's even a step further where you can just so clearly point to these as issues on a just with his job, like how well he's doing his job, he's not doing good at. And then on top of that, he's just fired because he's a bad person, not even because he wasn't doing his job well. It's unreal.
And not that bright, because, I mean, it's one thing to, like, you know, say things that you know you shouldn't say, everyone knows you shouldn't say, but to then, like, email them to, like, a GM on a business email that the team and league has access to. Just the judgment from this man, and then come on screen and talk about accountability.
It's a complete and utter shit show. That is the Raiders.
If you're still rooting for John Gruden, I want you to seriously ask yourself why, because I don't understand why people are still backing this man. He has done nothing right except, like, a few sound bites that are entertaining.
Well,
when
he's
you play
old.
Them for 5 seconds.
He's old. He's old school football. I mean, that goes back to there is this, like, we're at this, like, middle point in the NFL where there's these old heads, the old ways, you know, big hits, helmet to helmet, you know, in the trenches, and along with that stuff comes, like, a lot of old, kind of outdated, racist, homophobic.
Yeah, but you're at least supposed to win. Like, if you're that guy, you're at least supposed to win.
That is true. I mean,
have they even been to the playoffs with Gruden? I mean, what is the redeeming quality? I don't understand why people still defend this man.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. I don't think they have. Let me see if I can look it up.
I still hear football fans talking about like how he was turning this team around, and I just don't understand.
I think it's like just like kind of what Cole's saying is, you know, the NFL isn't exactly known for having the most like progressive fan base, and this guy who comes out and he's, you know, pushing the hard football talk. He's going to be the guy that like he appeals to that group, and they're the group that are the least bothered by these things that have come to light recently, the reason why he's let go. And so those things compound to some cognitive dissonance to back the guy that you've been backing for the last couple of years. And I don't think it's informed at all. And I think if you were to ask them, hey, like point to one good thing, they likely would only be able to say like, oh, he's got me fired up. Like,
no, yeah. So they were 4-12 the first season. That was obviously last 7-9 2019. They still didn't make the playoffs, and then last year they were 8-8, and I still don't think they made the playoffs.
So he peaked at 500.
That was his peak, and
yikes.
I mean, this stuff with Gruden is still going on. He is suing the NFL because he didn't get his $10 million, all of his $10 million contract. Obviously, because they fired him for being a racist piece of shit.
Yeah,
and he's like, I only got $40 million. I want it all. And yeah, he's just still hanging around. It's just the entitlement of this guy is insane. I feel like a normal human being would be like,
my bad.
I did not do well.
$40 million.
I did not do well here. Let me just kind of hide in a cave and, you know, not really come out from.
Quick update back. I'm not paying too much attention, but Zeke is back in the game.
Okay.
Just
yeah, well, I mean, yeah, Chiefs are doing pretty well, so yeah, Clyde Edwards-Helaire got a touchdown.
He's back. That's good to see.
Yeah, he's back.
He's been injured a while.
Yeah. But going back, yeah, if the audience didn't know, the whole John Gruden thing, yeah, it started with, which is hilarious, it started with actually the Washington football team was under investigation. And what came of that?
He's looking for someone to blame. It's probably Dan Snyder. It's probably Washington owner Dan Snyder.
Yeah, there was an investigation of toxicity, and was it toxicity or was it like sexual assault? I don't know, something not great.
It was all of the above.
Yeah,
it was answer D, all of the above.
Yeah, so they were getting investigated by the league, the Washington football team, and they're poking around in company emails, and they're like, wait, this one's from John Gruden that's talking about someone's lips being the size of Michelin tires, and no coincidence, it was a person of color, and so that didn't go over well, and they just dig up a bunch of other stuff, and then he gets fired. But
it's like, to Matt's point, it's like, I mean, like someone says that and you're like, whoa, man, like don't say something like that. But to take the time to write it down and not that gives you like at least a second to think about what you're doing. And
you have to click a button. Like basically like the send button is like, are you sure you want to do this? And he clicked it anyways. He clicked that button.
Oh my God.
Not even, by the way, not even over a personal email. A company email. Which is not to say that it would have been better from an ethical or moral standpoint, but at least more understandable from like just a judgment perspective.
Yeah.
That like, hey, people wouldn't like this.
Well, and how many times has someone gotten caught for being racist, homophobic, or whatever over email or text or something? It's like hello, that shit stays there.
Like he got in trouble.
He pulled a Damon Arnett, really. He pulled a Damon Arnett.
Yeah, right.
It's like, what happened to carrier pigeon or something, you know? Like,
Yeah, Damon Arnett, like exact same
just
thing.
like
It's
shoot the
what are you
pigeon when you're done.
doing?
Like, put it down.
Like, at what point are you like, yeah, this is a great idea, and like film it, and then stop after you're
Yeah.
done, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna post
End
that.
this.
It's like,
Yeah.
I'm still feeling this. And so the knock against Mark Davis is like John Gruden, after all this shit came out, he still played, or he still coached that week. So they had found out a few.
Oh, he would not have fired him if the league didn't force him to.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Zero
And,
chance.
you know, of course, Mark Davis, the owner of the Raiders, came out and said, oh, we found out about it on Thursday before the Bears games. We didn't hear about it from the league. They're saying they heard about it from the Wall Street Journal, who released like the emails. And essentially Mark Davis is like, oh no, it's the league's fault. Like they should have like given us the emails earlier. But everyone's thinking that's bullshit because there's a lot of rumors and talk that basically because John Gruden was Mark Davis's boy, his man boy.
They get their haircut together.
Yeah, apparently Mark Davis was always like pretty horny for John Gruden. And who knows what happened behind the scenes. But so obviously he was not going to just go out and be like, oh, of course you're fired. He wanted to make sure that this was damning enough to fire him, and so eventually he did, but that so this is another interesting kind of background into the Raiders. Is Al Davis, Mark Davis's dad, was the previous owner for the Raiders, and he was actually pretty progressive for an owner in the NFL. They had the first black head coach, the first black QB to be drafted. They had the first Latino head coach and the first female CEO of the franchise. And that was like kind of what Al Davis was known for.
If you said, hey, there's one team that did all of these things.
Yeah.
And asked me which team, I would not have guessed the Raiders.
No, and that is so funny because I thought the same thing when I was listening to this. Someone was talking about this. Al Davis was the champion of hiring like minority.
Well, clearly Mark Davis agreed with you guys and said, enough of that.
Yeah.
Let's swing this back around the other way.
And that's
Slow
the
down,
point.
Dad.
And that's the point is this turnaround of like Mark Davis just literally doesn't give a shit about honestly, one of the biggest parts of his dad's legacy. Besides obviously the success of the Raiders. But those are huge firsts. Those are huge firsts for a league dominated by white
those are
people.
Big deals. Yeah, those are big deals. And I think you're totally right that, you know, I think Mark Davis is likely a primary reason why I'm surprised to hear that the Raiders played that role.
Yeah.
And that's shitty.
And
that's shitty. Have someone who's like, you know, pushing against the status quo, making progress positively, and like that alone is hard in this league. Has been hard in this league, and then to like stop it, that's just so shitty. It's hard to get it going.
And it's just it's even worse because it's swung the other way. I mean, they've hired people. Mostly players, but people. John Gruden, I guess too. Just people of just very like ill reputation. Character. Yeah, and
character.
Like it is just so sad, and they're taking like almost credit for. So Carl Nassib was the first open active gay player in the NFL. But they didn't know that. They signed him in 2020, and then he came out in 2021. And they're like, now they're like almost like, oh, well, we are still progressive. Like, don't worry. And meanwhile, like you were talking about, Matt, that who is the fucking homophobic dude?
Richie Incognito.
Richie Incognito.
Yeah, literally, like he was on the team like 2 years before this.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I mean, it.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just becomes clear when those sort of philosophies are lip service, and at the end of the day, they just pick the players they want to pick. They don't care about that stuff.
Yeah.
And it took 3 years for it to 2-3 years for it to blow up in their face. That's
yeah, that's what
and
they
that's
deserve.
it.
Yeah.
That's it. It blew up in your face. It's gone. You're going to need a whole new front office and leadership, new era in Oakland, and you've ruined a chance for a talented team and a desperate fan base to actually make a run.
Yeah. No, that's sad. That is sad. I mean, Raiders.
And Derek Carr, who has been the butt of jokes for years on and off through his career, is going to be one of the guys to pay that price. And I mean, I don't know if it's to his credit or not. He's really stood behind these guys that have ended up off the team, whether that's Damon Arnett or Henry Ruggs or John Gruden. I think he sees them as, his people there. But that guy's career does not have a whole lot of runway left. And this was arguably the big run here, and it's dead in its tracks. I don't think anybody thinks this team still has a shot.
No, I don't think so at all. And that is tough. I mean, NFL is really ruthless that way, especially with quarterbacks. It's like you have 2, maybe 3 chances. You're lucky if you get a third chance, like we're seeing with like Cam Newton is on his 3rd chance right now, and if Cam Newton doesn't ball out and get the Panthers to the playoffs, it's pretty much done for him, and it still might be done.
Yeah, you're right.
And even this was 1 or 2 chances more than you expected him to get.
Yeah. Oh yeah. After New England, it's like who would have bet? I mean, everyone thought it was just like, oh, he's he's kind of just gonna be left hanging in the ether, maybe be a backup somewhere. But Cam Newton balled out
Raiders
today.
fans, sorry that you are who you are, and that your team is who they are.
But you kind of they kind of deserve it. The Raiders fans
they had it coming a bit.
Yeah, that is tough. You never want to see that. I mean, and it's even tougher that probably most of the Raiders fans are still in Oakland.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
no doubt about that.
I know that most of the Chargers fans are still in San Diego, so I know a thing or two about that.
Well, Rams fans are not really in St. Louis.
Yeah, but the Rams were originally in Las Vegas.
Los Angeles.
Or yes, Los Angeles. Sorry.
Yeah, fair enough.
So they were the Rams, then they went to St. Louis, and they went back to LA.
Yeah, that's tough. As an LA fan yourself, Cole, what would have to happen for the Chargers to take this town? I mean, they lost it so quickly. I mean, I don't know how that happened. How they became the second team so quickly. How did they get branded as the Clippers or the Angels to the Lakers Dodgers group that when they were not a bad team?
It's because this is a whole nother can of worms, but basically they're in San Diego. They've been in San Diego for a while, and they had decent teams. They had Phillip Rivers, they had LT, who was arguably the best running back of that era and considered all-time great. They had a lot of good players, and they were always going against Brady. That will always cut your season short. But the other issue was the fucking owners, dude. They were like, San Diego, you have to pay for our new stadium, because they were playing in Qualcomm Stadium and it was just a shithole. And they're like, you have to pay, like the city of San Diego, you have to raise money and buy us a new stadium, or we're going somewhere else. LA. And San Diego was just like, fuck you, you're not a good team anyways. And especially,
but why doesn't LA embrace them at all?
I think like my dad who grew up in Orange County, he always was a Rams fan. He was always a Rams fan. Partly a Raiders fan because the Raiders used to be in LA too. It used to be the Raiders and the Rams, if I'm not mistaken. And then the Raiders went to Oakland and Rams. So their Rams are OG LA. So anyone who's older than 40 years old or 40 years old or older remembers the Rams as an LA team. And the Chargers are, I mean, a lot of people, like, I'm listening to, like, Shannon Sharp talk on Undisputed, and he will always say San Diego Chargers. And he'll be like, oh, fuck, like, I messed that up. But it is. It's like they are, like, thought of as still San Diego. And you're just the second team to get there. That's what happened with the Clippers. That's what happened with the Chargers. Like, Angels were a little bit different because I think it was like Angels were considered more like Anaheim Angels.
Yeah.
And that's like a little bit of a different region than like LA. No, but that's a really good point. The Clippers actually were in San Diego too for a hot second. They went to LA, or they were started in LA. Went to San Diego.
I learned that there's actually like a large Clippers fan base in Buffalo. They also they started in Buffalo. I think.
Did they?
Yeah, which is just like, that was so weird for me to learn. Just being ignorant of that history and being
they
like,
should have a fan base somewhere. So
Right.
even if it's Buffalo, I guess.
True. They gotta do it somewhere. I mean, that goes to the point of like where there's a lot of talks of expansion. Where do we think it's gonna go? There's talks
for basketball or football.
Well, for both. I've heard for football.
I think Seattle should get a team again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think basketball, Seattle's the easy choice.
Yeah.
For
I've heard Seattle, maybe even Vancouver too, because it
cool.
used to be Vancouver
It didn't
Grizzlies.
work the first time. I mean, yeah.
No, you call them something else, so it'll work better.
It's tough. Like, Toronto's a bigger city than Vancouver.
Yeah.
They just won a championship, and they still have trouble attracting talent.
No, that is true.
And they have not historically been a great franchise.
Taxes
And they
are
have historically been a franchise that you look at it and go, I wonder if they move them to St. Louis. Or like,
True.
like it's how I don't know that Canada can really support another big team there. I think football is an interesting one because that one is getting more and more international.
I've heard there's been a lot of pushes for Mexico City and London.
I think, Mexico City's, I think, particularly interesting.
London, it's wild how many NFL fans are in London. They started playing games there for that reason.
Yeah.
But I just feel bad when I hear that teams have to go play a game in Europe. I'm like, oh, that sounds like not a good time.
Yeah, and they started playing basketball NBA games in Mexico just because it's a little bit easier. I mean, it's not as far of a flight, but I don't. Yeah, that's what team realistically would want to play.
How do you base out of London if like doing one game in London's a rough one? If they're always like coming out to games, that's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and then the other cities you look at that don't have, say, football teams are like Orlando, Austin, Texas, Salt Lake. You look at like Boise or something. I mean, it becomes slim pickings pretty fast.
Yeah.
Can Orlando really support a team when Tampa and Jacksonville and Miami all have their own teams? I don't know. Can Austin support a team when Dallas and Houston already have their own teams? I mean, that's pretty tough. I mean, I guess it could be San Antonio there. Those teams already have professional sports of other leagues. Yeah, you also like you want to grow because the influence of that league is growing so much in the sport. But there are still a good few struggling teams out there. There's not another quarterback, right? Like, you're just going to put in another team that doesn't have a franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
You're just gonna put in another team that doesn't have a good enough left tackle. Like you're just gonna put in an NBA team that's also not gonna be a contender. It's not like we've got 30 teams and so many more talented players to spread around.
But you could argue over time though you spread out the talent.
You do, but is that
it takes time,
is that
yeah.
Is that what the people want?
Is that what you want? Yeah, I mean, I guess, do you want worse teams?
I
don't
love
know.
them. My thing is like, okay, we tried the OKC thing. Like, I'm sorry, Oklahoma City, but fuck, dude. Like, how many people are in Oklahoma City? How many people are there in Seattle? I cannot. That just doesn't seem like that was a profitable move.
No,
I agree.
mean, they're pulling me like an entire region there, and I think still it's like, how do you look at that as a replicable model to add another team here? I don't think it makes sense.
Also,
no way.
like, I've heard some really interesting talks that I don't think will happen probably in the next 10 years, but so soccer has a format like in the Premier League in England for soccer. They have the main league.
You talking relegation?
Yes, I fucking love that idea because So how it works is you have, let me just pull up Premier League. You have teams that are in basically the pro league and amateur league and then like semi-amateur or whatever. And you have the bottom 3 teams get cut from the league and they go to the amateur league, and you have the 3 teams get from the top of the table in the amateur league get bumped up to the pro league. And I just think that's so smart because that way bottom tier teams have to fight to stay, like, right, because right now it's just like, oh, I'm OKC, I'm just gonna like doopa-doopa-doo, like I'm just gonna
You can get a great draft pick.
yeah, I'm just gonna like play Josh Giddey and like who cares how he does.
It definitely introduces like a new incentive structure that
Yeah.
certainly has some value to it, but it's a remarkably different system, and getting
You're a remarkably different system.
thanks, but
And there are other ways to achieve that. Like I can tell you could do one thing that ends tanking in basketball right now. You just flatten the lottery. Just flatten the lottery, or
but
get rid of the incentives for those bad teams to be bad, and immediately they're not bad anymore.
yeah, but then the bad teams have a harder time of getting good, because they don't get high, That's where
Maybe.
Well, see, I look at like in football. Actually, someone brought it up. I forget who it was who was talking about football. The Jets are perfect for this situation. Are the Jets? The Jets are going nowhere. The sensation with Mike White, who was like a 5th round draft pick, and the city of New York was like, he was the second coming of Jesus, dude, for them. And they're like, oh, we drafted what's his name? Their starting quarterback,
Zach Wilson.
Zach Wilson. And they're like, oh, he's whatever. Like, even though we traded up for him, fuck him. Mike White.
Yeah.
Mike White is maybe like Tom Brady-esque, where, he had a rough start, late draft pick, but no, he's a diamond in the rough. And he had a really good game, and then next game he threw like 4 fucking picks.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I mean, to me, there are so many examples of teams that are bad, stay bad, regardless of their good draft choices.
yeah.
That I don't even care about that anymore. To me, like, these are teams that are bad because they're bad, and the good draft picks do not elevate them in any real significant way. They just kick the can a year and a half until they're bad again.
And so that's
if you
my
instead disincentivize them
yeah.
by not giving them those big draft picks, maybe they actually turn things around.
But I think that's what they used to do, right? Isn't that how? I mean, at least in the NBA, I know they didn't have the lottery, and then they introduced the lottery.
Yeah, but it's so long ago; it's almost not comparable.
True.
I mean, there was also no salary cap. Right now, there's a salary cap.
But to
And
your
you had the
point,
situation, you couldn't be a star in Milwaukee, and you can be a star in Milwaukee now.
True. But to the point of if an organization is bad and they have draft capital, it's like, who gives a fuck? They're gonna choose someone bad. How are they gonna improve their lineup outside of the fucking draft? And if they're bad,
I think we should give this more time than just at the end of our episode. But I will point out one team, the Brooklyn Nets. Okay, that has been a bad team for a very long time. But this is a team that, after trading every draft pick they had for the next 5 years and all their laundry money for Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett when they were both 46, they then, over time, built an actually good team with almost no stars on it.
True. But I would still say, though, they got to contention because of Kevin Durant, not their front office. Kevin Durant and Kyrie.
They had built a playoff team. Not a championship
fringe
team, but a
playoff
team out of second-round picks.
True.
You give those guys first-round picks instead, and you can actually put a good team together. But the problem with them is every time they finally put something good together, they trade it all for a whiff at a superstar.
Yeah. I mean, that's where I'm just saying, you incentivize shitty front offices to overhaul by being like, you're not going to be playing on the pro stage. You're not going to be receiving all these endorsements, all this advertisement. Like, you'll be an amateur team until you can prove that you're not. I mean, I love that. I think that takes...
It's an interesting incentive structure for sure.
Yeah.
It is. We should talk about it. We'll take an episode.
So let's Mark, we'll write this down on the notes. This definitely, it's a good topic, because I also like the topic of like incentives to move to specific markets, because if you look like New York and LA, they have two of every team in every sport there, and it's like, why do they do that if the like Chargers don't even have a fan base?
I don't understand at all why Oklahoma City doesn't have like 3. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, but it's interesting too, because you look at like Chicago. Chicago's pretty much as big of a media market as LA and New York, and you don't have that really in Chicago. You do for baseball, but they're the Bulls and they're the Bears, and it's just something about the history of those two franchises. They don't really accept any other teams there.
Yeah.
So I don't know, something to look at. We'll come back to that.
Yeah, we can check that out. Well, let's wrap it up. We had a good talk. Again, I'm proud of us. We did not hit 2 hours. We're at an hour and 37 minutes.
Wow.
So we're getting better, guys.
We'll eventually get it to an hour.
Yeah, one of these days.
One of these days. But yeah, everyone out there listening, make sure to please like and subscribe. We make big bucks if you subscribe. Like, we'll become millionaires and we'll give it all back to the people. So
I get to buy individually packaged yogurt cups every time one of you guys subscribes at home. That's the tax bracket I move up into.
Yeah, Matt gets to like get ramen from like a restaurant instead of like a store. But yeah, make sure check out. Yeah, we're on Twitch for people who want to watch live. We're also on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel where we upload all the talk shows, and as well as the audio on Spotify. Also, follow our Twitter. It's a lot of fun if you're on Twitter. Follow our feed. But yeah, that'll wrap up the episode. All right. See you, everyone.
Bye.
Guys.